Good afternoon to all the participants and fellow colleagues. I, Ritika Srivastava, Assistant Professor Sociology, warmly welcomes you to Day 3 of National Webinar on Scholarly Writings, Publishing and Research in Social Sciences. But before we begin our today's session on Research in Social Sciences, I would like to call upon Dr. Anita Bhasin ma'am to read Day 2 report. Ma'am. Anita ma'am.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Good afternoon, dear participants. Day 2 brought more light on publication aspects. Dr. S.N. Puchar, in his enlightening and interesting talk on how to select the right journal for publication, uh, showed how it was a problem for novices new to the field of publishing. He threw light on where to publish research papers. He spoke about indexed and non-indexed journals, the types of publications, and the reasons for publishing. Most importantly, he gave us the criteria for choosing journals. He also, the criteria for choosing journals, he spoke about journal metrics and tools and checklists for submission. He also emphasized that rejection should not be treated should not be treated negatively, and if at all you are published, you should always concentrate on maintaining an online profile. In the second session on research metrics, Dr. Satish Munoli spoke about the importance of research metrics to academics and how the journal impact factor was calculated. He also spoke about other level matrices like H-index, G-index, 𝐼10 index, and H5 index. He showed how they were calculated and the differences between them. He spoke about a new concept, pointed out a new concept called altmetrics, introduced in 2010, where an author should get social media attention. These metrics could be found in the Web of Science, Scopus, Indian Citation Index, Google Scholar, and many other types of journals. But he also spoke about the limitations each journal has. He says they publish their own criteria and collection of scores. There is no comprehensive database available for them, and it is quantitative, not qualitative. Nevertheless, he also emphasized the fact that metrics enhance visibility, and people have to be active on social media because citations illuminate work. With that, I will now hand over the floor to my host. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to call upon Dr. Arun Chandne sir to give a brief introduction of our resource person for today's session.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, one and all present here. Day 3, session 5. It's my honor and privilege to introduce today's resource person with us, a great academician, professional, researcher, environmentalist, and social worker, Dr. Professor Vibhuti Patel. Professor Vibhuti Patel superannuated from TIS, Mumbai, on 30th June 2020. Professor Vibhuti Patel worked at Advanced Center for Women's Studies, School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences from 1st July 2017 to 30th June 2020. After her superannuation from SNDT, Mumbai on 30th June 2017. Professor Vibhuti Patel is PhD in Economics, University of Mumbai. She was awarded visiting fellowship to the London School of Economics and Political Science from Association of Commonwealth Universities, UK in 1992-93. She has authored and co-authored 12 books edited and co-edited 9 books, and contributed over 100 papers as chapter in various books edited by others. She has also authored and co-authored 34 research monographs and reports. Her research paper, commentaries, and reviews have been published in the national as well as international academic journals. For EPG Pathshala, UGC Delhi, she has been a paper coordinator for women and economics. For MA Women Studies course, she has been writer for 9 modules and reviewer for 11 modules. Video recorded 11 modules. For course on MA Adult Continuing and Extension Education. She wrote and presented 4 modules and video recorded 4 modules. She received Citation Award from Mahila Sangh Band Association Mumbai on 8 March 2016. Citation from Men Against Violence and Abuse, that is MAVA, Mumbai on its 20th anniversary celebration on 10th March 2030. Citation when 1 billion rising campaign was launched in November 2012 by Akshara Mumbai. Award for social sector work from Mayor of Mumbai, Mumbai Municipal Corporation on 8 March 2011. Outstanding Citizenship Award by Women Political Forum on Maharashtra, Sri Mukti Din, 3rd Jan 2004. Award for Women Achiever from Young Environmentalist Program, Trust, Mumbai on 7 March 2011. The Times Foundation Award for Women Achievers on March 8, 2007. Award for Social Work from Vanita Samaj, Mumbai on 18 Jan 2008. Award Post-Doctoral Fellowship from Association of Commonwealth University that enable her to work as visiting faculty at the Development Studies Institute, the London School of Economics and Political Science during 1992-93. She is a member of editorial board also. The International Journal of Economics, Education and Development, Switzerland. Bharatiya Samajik Chintan, Indian Academy of Social Sciences, Allahabad. Pragati, a Journal of Indian Economics, Delhi, Journal Press, India. Social Modernity, Asian.
पायी बाळूसा तुम्ही दोघी मुली आहे तिकडे मी उचलला येऊ
पण तरी सुद्धा थोडा
मला कसंच वाटतं
कसं मस्त तरी वाटतं ते कोण दुसरी बाईला नाही
अरे
उचलायचं
पण
माझी
तुम्ही
आई
दोघी
आहे
जणी आहेत ना शेवटी
तो
तिकडे
बघत बसलाय तिकडे
Shall I continue?
Arun sir, you are on mute.
The Urban World, Quarterly Journal of Regional Center for Urban Environmental Studies, All India Institute of Local Self-Government, Mumbai. Quest in Education, a quarterly journal published by Gandhi Shikshan Bhavan, Mumbai. Research Horizon, Manibend Nanavati College for Women, Mumbai. Arthat, a quarterly journal in Gujarati published by Center for Social Studies, Surat. She prepared best paper on gender for Mumbai Human Development Report 2010. Maharashtra Human Development Report 2012 and MMRDA Human Development Report 2012 for Government of Maharashtra. She contributed 3 chapters for an expert committee report on socio-economic status of Muslim in Maharashtra for Maharashtra State Minority Commission, Government of Maharashtra 2013. As an expert committee member of the working group on discrimination against women and girls of United Nations Human Rights Council, she contributed to prepare a report on women human rights in Changing World of Work 2020. Thank you. Over to you, Ritika ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call Dr. Vibhuti Patel ma'am to begin with today's session. Ma'am.
Ma'am, you're on mute. Kindly unmute.
Good afternoon, all. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Professor Dr. Lili Bhushan, Principal of KES Shroff College of Arts and for this, inviting me for this national webinar on scholarly writing, publishing, and research in social sciences. I would also like to offer my heartfelt thanks to the team which has organized this very important program, that is on like Professor Ritika Srivastava, Dr. Arun, Dr. Anita Basti, Dr. Ganga Shushi, Dr. Vanita Warrior, Dr. Alka Vadwan, Professor Nandini Kat, for keeping in touch with me to get me here. So now I would like to, my topic is mainly about the writing of a research proposal, research report, and also the research methodology in social sciences. So I am sharing my PPT so that will make the topic given to me is very wide, and I think it's very important that we
કોઈ છોકરા નથી કરતા.
Excuse me.
કાલમાં નહીં થાય મનસી તારું નહીં આવું બધું કર લે તું યાર. Let your.
Hello. Can I have full screen or can I'll have to do this only?
Hello.
Yeah.
There is some. Yes, it's on full screen now.
Okay. So the today's topic is research in social sciences. Okay, we are going to discuss two aspects. One is the theoretical aspects and other is how to organize our research endeavor. So that is, first is that social science researches are extremely important, mainly because they deal with the human beings and it expands the existing body of knowledge, which is provided by the providing solutions to different problems. Society is so complex and there are so many important and multifaceted problems that you face. So the different problems in a you need the pedagogy to understand these problems. So while improving your teaching and also learning practices, we need to seek the answers to mind-boggling societal issues through in-depth inquiry, critical reflections of the existing body of literature, because research is an endeavor where you are adding something new. So whatever is there existing, you have to, unless you throw more light in terms of data, in terms of perspective, in terms of insights, in terms of bringing up various correlations of various factors, it is not something that you have contributed to the existing body of knowledge. So the construction of new knowledge is very, very important in the social science research. And that's why what we see is that we need to, first of all, we need to have a factual understanding of the issue. You need to have a very high level of motivation, but you also need to have a philosophical and the understanding that what kind of theoretical framework, what kind of philosophical bent of mind you have and how you are going to use the analytical tools and analytical vision. So whether it is a hermeneutics or positivism, pragmatism, realism, empiricism, interpretivism. So all these different types of schools which came into existence over last 200 years, because you know that the social science researches came into vogue only after the colonization of the world. It was first, whether it's a sociology or anthropology or ethnography, all these things were used by the colonial powers because they were handful of people, some thousands of white men who were controlling 65, like British Empire controlled 65 colonies, okay? Now, how do they do it? So you need a knowledge system. You have to control the minds of the people in the colony. So it is in this context that the social science researches came into existence. Now, the research approach in any social science practices, then first of all, it's most important to have a theory building, and also to come up with the testing, whether your theory is esoteric, whether it is unrealistic, or it has a foundation, it is rooted in the existing reality. So the empirical research, which is you're knowing the reality, very important. You need to have a methodological skill, that how are you going to conduct your research? What are the kind of standards you are going to use? What kind of invariant, like the across disciplines, like if you are doing, say, study of violence against women, okay, or you are doing research on problems of implications of COVID virus on the communities. You need various types of understanding. You need to understand the medical science, epidemiological aspect. You need to understand the people's practices and habits. You need to understand psychological dimension, the fear and the distress that it has caused. So you need to go across disciplines, and you also need to have a theoretical skill, because theories, they give you the key to understanding the issue and to understand, critically reflect, because what is there out there and how do you interpret it is very important. Now, variety of research approaches, tools, and techniques, such as qualitative techniques, where qualitative techniques, your words, your gesture, your body language, what you see, and how people speak, that becomes your data. While in the quantitative data, it is your percentages, it's your numbers, your bar chart, your pie chart, your figures, your cross tables, they are very important. So statistical analysis is very important in the research. The question, like psychology, students of psychology or students of people currently, this year's Nobel Prize was given to Mr. Banerjee, Professor Banerjee. What are they doing? They were doing the experiments, RCT, random control trial. What did they do? They wanted to, they were given the problem of teacher absenteeism in Indian schools. World Bank report showed that 85% of government school teachers were not reporting for the work. They went to the school only on their payday. Now, taking this broad macro data, what did they do? They did the random control trial in Rajasthan, where there were experimental group and there was a control group. Control group were not given any, the same method was going on, but the experimental group were given mobile, and they were asked that when they enter the class, they have to inform the district commissioner's office, they have to take the presence mark of all the students, and when they leave the class, that time also they have to inform the district commissioner's office. And it was found that those in the experimental group who were given mobile and who were their movements were monitored, and there was a biometric in the classroom while entry and exit. The teachers started coming regularly. Now, this played a very, very important role in changing the educational scenario in Rajasthan. But Rajasthan, which was supposed to be one of the most least educated state, no? The literacy rate was very low, dropout rate was very low, and we saw suddenly Rajasthan came up. Within 10 years, the scenario changed. Similarly, they did similar studies about habits when the Ebola in Africa, the way we have a currently we have a coronavirus, Africa was devastated due to Ebola virus. Now that is the time, what were the health practices of people? Whether people were washing their hands, whether they were following certain kinds of hygiene or not. Now about that also random control trials were done, that those who were informed about importance of hygiene, who were benefiting from, who were given sanitizer, and who were also trained, who were through workshop, who were told that it is very important to use sanitizer for control of Ebola virus, the results were very good. The fatality rates were very low. So these are called experiments. In psychology, many psychological studies, they are based on experiment. Okay, but you know Pavlov's study, no, about how the behavior of dog was changed. Then the field surveys are very extremely important currently. If you see all the rapid assessment studies, they are field based. You go to the field, there is no shortcut. So it's just downloading things from the website and writing review of literature is not enough. You have to know what out there. The case researches are also very important. Case researches are case studies of institutions, case studies of certain phenomena, processes, case studies of people like women, of industrial workers or farmers, or any kind of institutions which are doing important work. So those institutional memories, the case studies of institutions are very important. And archival research, all the historical research that happens is about archival research. Recently, you must have noticed that in last 15 months, lot of archival research is happening about the history of medicine in India. That how at the time of colonial, how the public health system in India got established during the colonial times, and how certain measures which were taken by the colonial rulers, for example, closing of gutter. The moment closing of gutter was happened, so many waterborne diseases were controlled. When the wells were covered, the waterborne diseases were controlled, or mosquito related illnesses like malaria were controlled. That at the time of pilgrimage, like there used to be mass death of people due to cholera, typhoid, and jaundice. How the colonial rulers they control it by the purification of water. So there are many such archival and researches which are very important. In Mumbai, you have a Asiatic Library. In Delhi, you have a Nehru Memorial Library. In Kolkata, you have important archives of the Eastern region in the Victoria Memorial Library. So these archival researches are very important. Other thing is oral tradition, that oral evidences are also important. Currently, you know, Government of India is celebrating Amrit Mahotsav of freedom fighters. Okay, 75 years of Indian freedom fighters. Now, so many freedom fighters who were children, who were just young college students, they are the ones who are now in their 90s and they are late 80s. Now you are doing the oral evidences that how did they organize Quit India movement, what happened in the Jallianwala struggle, what were the painful experiences of partition. Now these are the oral evidences. This you depend on the memory of the people to construct the history. Now in the exploratory research, the important thing is that you scope out the magnitude or extent of particular phenomena or a problem or behavior. And from that, you generate some initial ideas. What are the hunches you have? No? Because when you observe certain things very regularly, consistently, then you come out with certain patterns that are emerging. Like recently, you know, that domestic violence is considered to be shadow pandemic. Now, what were the hunches in the first, like March 2020, when coronavirus affected 191 countries? Within 1 month, United Nations came out with a advisory to the nation states that they have to take measures to control the pandemic of gender-based violence. Now, how did it come? Because the national crime records of the country, which was showing a very different kind of a pattern. Various forms of violence had increased. So this was the hunch. Once you had this hunch that under lockdown, under the condition of social isolation, and under the condition where 24/7 people in all family members have to be stuck in the house, violence increases. Whatever inequalities that are existing in the society, they get exacerbated at the time of pandemic, at the time of health emergency. So after that, you ask for the research projects. You ask for, and when the research projects are based on these preliminary hunches, and then you come up with the concept note, and you come up with your questionnaire. Third stage is to test the feasibility of undertaking or a more extensive study regarding the phenomena. So whatever hunch you have, you try to study more this thing. Like if you say that in a city like Mumbai, cases of pickpocketing are extreme at the time of peak hours, where the stations are overcrowded, and that is the time all the pickpocket, they do the stealing. Now, this is your hunch. But as a researcher, you need to prove, because when the railways assign the research, They have to come up with certain method, questionnaire and all, and from the basis of which you come up with the recommendation that what kind of measures can be taken by Indian Railways to stop pickpocketing. Impact of employment on women in decision-making power. There are so many studies over last 30 years on the economic independence that most of the studies, the hunch is that initially in 1975, when India celebrated International Women's Year, and Towards Equality report, which was also based on a rigorous research, was presented in the Parliament of India. The one hunch that came out that because the work participation rate of women was very, very low in India, 11% only in 1971. And they said that if women are economically independent, they will get more dignity and more respect in the family, and there will be less cases of discrimination and violence against women. Now, this is the general common sense level understanding. But how you prove it? You have to prove it through your research. And that's why ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Researchers, asked all the universities and research institutions in India to focus on women and work, what kind of contribution women are making in different sectors of the economy. Now, another very important way of doing research is a descriptive research, which is also very important. You need to have a power of PEM. You have to explanatory power has to be very important, and you observe and you describe. Okay, so that is also wherever when you go to the field. In our times, we were always told your field notes are the most valuable thing. You don't sleep before you complete your field notes. What all field work you have done during the day, you describe it. Not only the questionnaire in which they do tick mark and give quantitative information, but how was the setting when you enter the village, when you enter the tribal area? What were people doing? What was the level of people's interest in the work that you are doing? Were they afraid of you? Because I know it's in the late 70s, whenever we went to the field, the villagers would start running away. When we went to the tribal area, they would start running away into the deep forest, thinking that we had gone there for sterilization. There was so much of fear. Those 18 months of emergency in India between 75 and 77 had created tremendous fear. And there was for 10 years, there was a complete obsession about population control, and any kind of brutal, unethical, cruel methods were used to catch hold of the poor man and women and sterilize them, or just insert copper T or whatever contraception. So there was so much of fear that nobody would even come. So you write we would write in our field notes and in our research report that it was very difficult to get data because they did not trust us. They were starting running away. It took a long time just to establish trust between the respondent and us. And we call them respondent. We don't call them subject, okay? They are human beings. They are citizens like us. Just because we are researcher and we are from city and so we have degrees, it doesn't mean that we are superior to people about whom we are doing the research. So chronicling ethnographic reports or persistent or evolution of religion or culture or ethnic practices in specific communities, customs of different communities, role of technology such as Twitter or instant messaging in spreading of information regarding flooding in different parts of Mumbai. In 2005, it was the social media which had played in 2005, it was a FM radio which played a very important role in providing the support system for the people who were stranded in various localities due to floods in Mumbai. So there have been this kind of a descriptive research, which is very, very important. Now, theoretical frameworks which are very popular in the social science researches. One is the rationalism, that is a process of systematic logical reasoning. It was a French philosopher, Descartes, who had founded that any research that you do, it has to be rational, it has to be scientific, it has to be objective. Empiricism in research, that school which was founded by John Locke and David Hume. They were the British philosophers. He says that no research is valid unless it is empirically tested. So knowledge acquisition is an empirical activity. You just can't sit in your library or you can't sit in your armchair and decide, write the research report. Okay, you need, it has to be empirically rooted. That means there is a no shortcut to fieldwork. Fieldwork is very important in the empirical research. German idealism by a philosopher Kant, which inspired later development of interpretative techniques such as phenomenology. Currently, you know that so many studies have done, like migration. There are excellent studies done on reverse migration during pandemic, which have used the phenomenological approach. As the phenomena was unfolding, the researchers who were observing, who were moving with the migrants, they wrote about it, the whole phenomena. Hermeneutics, where you are interpreting people's perception, how people have certain perception. Like if you meet a young child who is beaten up very badly by the teacher or by the parents, the child may say that, yeah, because I was mischievous, I was beaten up. But you as a researcher who doesn't believe in corporal punishment, that under no circumstances child abuse is allowed, physical abuse is allowed. Or so many times in case of sexual abuse, the child may say there may be something, because I was sitting alone, it happened. So child thinks that I am responsible for what bad happened to me. But you as a researcher, you know that child sexual abuse is a crime. There is a law called POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Abuse Act. So you use your discretion, you use the certain universal values to understand, to explain the phenomena of this kind of a behavior. Critical social theories. There are several critical social theories, which was, you can say, Karl Marx had a own theory, critical social theory. Max Weber had critical social theory. Post-Marxian and post-structural schools had critical social theories, which are examining whatever is there out there. They don't accept it as it is. They use the critical faculty to examine why certain things happen. Another very important school currently, the most widely, most of the researches over last 19th century and 20th century have happened with the positivism. Positivism, where the French philosopher Auguste Comte, he was the founder of discipline of sociology, attempted to blend both rationalism and empiricism in a new doctrine called positivism. Positivism is extremely dependent on numbers. Okay, what is the representativity of the fieldwork? What is the sample size? First thing the positivist would ask, what is your sample size? Okay, 50, nothing. If you say 12,000, 50,000, why do we all trust data from National Family Health Survey, which were fifth round data had come, or recently the time use survey by the Ministry of Statistics, Census of India, which is a head count of all Indians, National Sample Survey, which takes into consideration 25,000 households in one state. So these are the large data set which are created by them. They also have a case studies called focus group discussion and qualitative dimension, but largely it is numbers and percentages. So in positivist theory, your representativity, how representative your sample is, how have you collected your samples, which sampling techniques you have used, that becomes very important. As against that, we have seen in the last quarter of 20th century and initially in the 21st century, there are so many scholars who believe in, they are anti-positivist, and they employ qualitative method. A whole of women's studies or a gender studies, queer studies, LGBTQIA movement. They said, okay, we may be small in number, but our experiences are legitimate. Okay, so all the minorities, Foucault, many of you must have been familiar. Foucault became extremely popular as a philosopher in the 1970 onwards. Discipline of literature, political science, architect, medicine, Social sciences like sociology, ethnography, archaeology, psychology, all have been influenced by Foucault. What is the Foucauldian thinking? Foucauldian thinking is that you just don't accept what meta-narrative says. Meta-narrative, official discourse, okay? Whatever is officially told to you, you don't accept. You also try to legitimize. You also try to bring to the fore knowledge of the subjugated, who are silenced, who are at the margin. Currently, if you see the trend of Dalit feminism or the works done by scholars like Sharmila Rege, Dalit women speak differently. It's a very, very different from what the mainstream women's studies literature has said. Now, in anti-positivism, you employ a qualitative method. You have an unstructured interview. You allow the participant to speak the way, without interrupting, without passing any judgment. You allow that person to speak because so far they have not been given any platform or any space to express themselves. Their experiences were not even considered legitimate. Okay, so it is very important to give them space. Now, post-positivism and post-empiricism, they are also currently very, very fashionable, where the human knowledge is based not on unchallengeable, rock-solid foundations, but they are rather a set of tentative conjecture that can never be proven conclusively. That means you go with the open mind, you go, the whatever beliefs are existing, that may not be true. For example, when you are doing study like Freudian, like Freud, when he wrote about Oedipal complex and Electra complex, which was based on the testimonies with which women who were so-called mental and who came to him for psychotherapy. The kind of conclusions Freud came up with, okay, he said that women and children can never be trusted because they hallucinate. What these women were telling Freud about experiences of violence, cruelty, brutality, incest, child sexual abuse, Freud says it was a bad dream. It was a bad dream. Now, it had such a devastating impact that in all medical textbooks, in a casualty ward, the doctor is taught not to trust what the woman and child says, okay? Because Freud has said that they dream, they have bad dream. It took women's movement 30 years of effort to convince that whatever these women are saying is true. Women get beaten up, women face rape, rape exists in the society, children are treated badly, okay? So this kind of challenging the meta-narrative, challenging the established practices and coming in, and as a result, now you see medical colleges have come up with a gender in medical education as a very important research project, where in the medical textbooks, which are the gender biases, whether it's Ayurveda or homeopathy or allopathy, what kind of, and there they do the multidisciplinary research along with the social scientists. Social scientists and medical science, they come together. Another thing is, like somebody says, no, there are so many economic determinists who always say economic deprivation leads to violence. Okay, maybe in some cases it happens, but we have also seen that in the tribal area, the most deprived areas in our country, in terms of economic rights, are tribal areas. There is tremendous hunger, there is starvation. There is lack of basic, even this much salt they don't have. There is a problems which are created because of the deficiency of salt, because they don't have iodine. So iodine, and still you see the tribal areas are relatively peaceful, okay, as compared to in the urban centers and this thing, the violence that you see. So this kind of axiomatic understanding, it is not only the economic deprivation, but there are so many factors, cultural factors, history, what kind of role models you have, what kind of level of the consumerist society is more violent, because you constantly want to grab. Why people from the who are educated, who are economically secure, food secure family, why do they do the crime? Because of the consumers, they want to grab. So there are many other factors which are also responsible for violent behavior. It is not only economic deprivation. critical research is like you try to understand that what are the conflicting interests, what are the contradictions in the contemporary societies. You seek to eliminate causes of alienation and domination, like emancipation of the oppressed class. How can it happen? Baba Sahib Ambedkar, he said, educate, educate, organize, and agitate. Then only you will get your dignity. Okay, so this kind of alienation from degraded work, alienation from social stigma, alienation because of the layering of the social human beings into who are top and who are bottom and who are inferior and who are superior. Now, how do you understand this kind of a social processes which happen in our society? So people can and should consciously act to change their social and economic circumstances. How do you do it? It was the experiences of Baba Sahib over last 50 years, which culminated in his sensitivity by drafting the Constitution of India. How come Indian Constitution is so comprehensive, so sensitively drafted way back in 1947? So it was all the critical faculty and critical research that's important. Although their ability to do so is constrained by various forms of social, cultural, and political domination, because he said that we have come up with the best constitution of India, but the gap between what constitution promises and what reality, that has to be bridged only by the social action. We need to change the people, we need to change our practices. Now, you must be familiar with the term, which is very, very often and very widely used in current scenario, whether it is a global politics or in the social science research or in the newspaper articles, intersectionality. What is intersectionality? Understanding how aspects of person's social, economic, political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. All these recent new OTT platform films on Netflix and Amazon, you must be hearing this word intersectionality. Okay, whether they are the films from Africa, Nigeria, films from Russia, films from Spain, where they are showing how interracial relations are taking place. Films from Philippines, no, they all talk about. So the example of this aspect include gender, class, caste, sex, race, skin color, because there is a colorism. You may be from the same caste, but some are brown, some are white, some are black, and how differentially you are treated. In my house, I was the only black child, okay, and a girl from a Patel community, and I know how our society is as colorist as any other Western society based on racism. Sexuality, how we treat the sexual minorities, what kind of deprivation they have to face. Religion, religious minorities, how are they treated? Disability, how we treat disabled person as a piece of furniture. We don't treat that person as a citizen. We don't think that they also have so many dreams, demands, urge to be loved. We don't say them. When it comes to disabled person, they have a role-lessness, okay? To not to have any role can be very devastating. Okay, it's very important. All of us have different roles, either as a teacher or a student, as a mother, or as a child, or as a lover, or as a colleague. Okay, so role is very important. So disability studies, if you go through it, a lot of research is happening currently in disability research studies. Age and our society is ageist. Okay, who do you consider as a full human being, and who do you consider as, that's why we say, don't infantilize me. When anybody tries to shut you up and won't allow you to legitimately express yourself, you feel infantilized. Patients get infantilized by doctors when patients are not given their rights. So if you see, the whole research is on patients' rights, where they say that they feel being infantilized. Senior citizens, people who are in old age home, they feel infantilized. They are treated like babies. Nobody listens to that. They don't have decision-making power. Physical appearance, because today's society is a selfie society where everyone wants to look the best and who wants to look. And what are our standards of beauty? Do we accept the diverse standards of beauty, or we have only monolithic standard of a beauty, of a figure and feature and color of your eye and color of your hair, and whether you are, if you have straight hair, you are beautiful. If you have a curly hair, you are not. So all these things, they create intersectionality. They keep layering and unequal power relations between them. People who are short, how are they treated? Why is a tall and handsome? Every 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 story talks about tall and handsome, and that's also this kind of a prejudices are created, which creates various inequalities. So this intersectionality, this interplay of all these multiple forces, they determine what kind of bargaining power you have in your family, in your community, at your workplace, and in the society at large, and even as a global citizen. So in any research, your concepts, the concepts are very important. Concepts or a generalizable characteristics, they need to be defined very clearly. And that's why anybody who does research, first thing your funder or even UGC, ICSSR, ICHR, whosoever is going to support your research, even your college, if you have a research unit in your college, they said give a 2-page concept note. Okay, so concept note becomes very important to and concepts and construct. They are related to concepts are extremely important because they determine that what's going to be the matrices, what is going to be the matrix within which you are going to do your research. The construct is an abstract concept that is specifically chosen or created to explain given phenomena. The construct may be simple concepts such as person's weight. Okay, when you are doing study on malnutrition, what do you say? Okay, first we will see the weight of a child, because that's what ICDS does, no? Integrated Child Development, this thing. Currently, a lot of data has emerged due to, in the pandemic, on malnutrition. So person's weight, or a combination of set of related concepts, like how malnutrition has affected the cognitive ability, because you need rich protein diet to be articulate, to have your good memory, to understand mathematics. So person's communication skill, which may consist of several underlying concepts such as your vocabulary, your syntax, your spelling, the kind of exposure you have, because your vocabulary develops in the environment you are in. Okay, so unidimensional construct, which are income, rich or poor. Multidimensional constructs are learning, because learning can come in a various ways. Learning can come from your grandmother's stories. It can come from the values which your parents are giving. It can come from the books and journals and magazines and children's books, these things that you are reading. It can also come with a discussion with your friend. It can come with in the classroom situation. And it can also come with the online social media information. So multi-dimensional constructs and unidimensional constructs, and you need to create operational definition for my particular study, which are the unidimensional construct I'm using and which are the multi-dimensional construct I'm using. So empirical formulation of proposition stated as relationship between various variables. Okay, that's important. The propositions are specified in a theoretical plane, while hypotheses are specified in empirical plane. Hypotheses are empirically testable. That means from whatever information, whatever data you get from field, through your observation, through your interviews, you test your hypothesis. May be rejected if it doesn't support, your data collection doesn't support the empirical your hypothesis. You reject that hypothesis, so you have a null hypothesis. And of course, the goal of hypothesis testing is to infer whether corresponding proposition is valid or not. So validity of the proposition you have made, like in economics, if you are doing a longitudinal study, okay, that how economic participation of the population, what is its impact on growth of the economy? Because currently, you know, World Economic Forum is saying that the countries which have very high work participation of women, they are rich countries. They have a double-digit growth, while India has only currently in the 2021, work participation of women is only 18%. So there is a tremendous pressure on India, tremendous naming and shaming of India, that you need to change your gender norm to release all these educated, qualified women to contribute to the economic growth. So how this proposition came from the experiences of 191 countries data which the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, gets. So hypothesis can be very strong and it can be weak hypothesis. Weak hypothesis where you don't get your evidences, they don't support the proposition that you are making. The very excellent example of weak hypothesis is alcoholic people are violent. Okay, they are the ones who beat up their wife and children. But all the studies on domestic violence have shown that even when people are not alcoholic, they are violent. So it's a weak hypothesis. So you just can't attribute alcoholism to, yes, it happens. Those who are alcoholic, they beat up. But even those who are not alcoholic, they can be equally cruel. So it is the patriarchy. It is the way you consider people who are weak, that means your children and wife, who can be controlled through violence. This is the idea which the patriarchy gives. Because there are alcoholic women, why don't they go and beat up people? There are alcoholic women also. No? So these are the weak hypotheses, and there are strong hypotheses when you say that it is the hunger that creates tremendous malnutrition. So that is a strong hypothesis. Now there are two types of logic we have in social science research. One is a deductive logic, another one is a inductive logic. In deductive logic, you have a theory. Okay, the way Socrates, Aristotle, all of them, they give theory about citizenship, about who has an entitlement to vote. Okay, these are the theories, and they have a hypothesis that only property class, those who are patrician, those who are taxpayers, they are the citizens. Rest of slaves and women are not citizens. Okay, that was the theory, deductive logic, and by that, all the rulers in the empire in those days, Roman Empire, or they followed this theory that they say that those who are not paying tax, those who are poor, they don't get the citizenship rights. So theory building, your theory can be based on the footing of very, very deplorable ideology. For example, the slave system. For 500 years, the human civilization considered slaves have no right to education. Slaves have no right to housing. They believed in apartheid. So these theories can also create their own hypothesis, and the world has been ruled by that. And they confirm such theory. So that is a deductive logic. First you have a theory, then you come up with the hypothesis, then you observe what is happening in the society, and you confirm that in your research. So a lot of people, they have debunked colonial research. Okay, so the research is done by missionaries about sati in India. The way they are describing sati as if it is some exotic firecrackers happening, no? Then this woman fully clad with ornaments and silk saris, and there was a smell of incense, and she enters the fire and she dies. And now none of us would accept that the process of sati was such a glorified one. It was a cruel thing, because they used to beat the drum so that her screams. Nobody likes to be burned. Who likes to be burned? So this kind of a logic was completely thrown out. And they say that the foundation of the theory, colonial theory, were very, very wrong. There were theories which said that the people who are fair skinned, white people, their threshold limit for pain is less than the black people. And there were researches done. Research is done in the American prisons. Random control trials were done on the basis of a theory that syphilis patient in the prison, those who had syphilis, syphilis is very painful disease. You must have seen that Netflix film, no, where they show the hero with syphilis all over the body. It was about the underworld in Mumbai. Okay? Dharavi. Now, white prisoners were given medicine for syphilis. They were the experimental group. And non-white prisoners were not given medicine. They were screaming in pain, and they were not given, just to prove the theory that threshold limit of colored people is to where pain is higher. Colored people were slaves. Colored people were colonized. Colored people were poor. So they had no even luxury. Even if they screamed, nobody would even listen to them. Okay, they were whipped. So this kind of a theory, there has been a lot of a challenge. So you need to know that which theories are deplorable, which theories are good. But in the deductive logic, you believe in the theory. While in inductive logic, you are like a Sherlock Holmes. Okay, what did Sherlock Holmes did? You must have been watching his movies, no? Sherlock Holmes, you first observe that, okay, murder has taken place or certain patterns are emerging in a city that under the lockdown. Most of the people in cities, they are more disciplined. Okay, you observe. Then you see that what kind of pattern. Who are more disciplined? Are they middle-aged or elderly or children or youth? Then you come up with the hypothesis that if the children it is the youth which is not so disciplined, while the middle-aged and elderly people are law-abiding. And then you theorize that which are the people who are, but everything is based on fieldwork. It is based on your observation. So inductive logic, you induct the theory, you come up with certain generalizations based on what you actually observe. It is not an ivory tower research. It is based on hardcore grassroots reality, based on facts, based on observation, based on fieldwork. Now, inductive logic, induction is a process by drawing conclusions based on facts and observed evidences. While deduction is a process of drawing conclusion about phenomena or behavior based on theoretical or logical reasoning or initial set of premises. Ethical practices and credibility, that is one thing that in so many deductive theories, they have been challenged. The theories which were propounded in the 19th century and 20th century, they have been challenged in the 21st century because they were based on certain kind of prejudices, certain kind of racial superiority of the whites against this. So that is in social science, there was a major uproar in the 70s where the post-colonial societies of Latin America, Africa, and Asia started challenging and debunking those theories which were based on the deductive logic. And they started demanding that what we need is a grounded theory. What is grounded theory? You know the ground reality, you go to the field, you see the things, you live with the people, and you come out with the facts. That is called grounded theory. Your reality speaks. Your theory doesn't, and you theorize on the basis of the real grassroots level experiences. There are market researches done by the management institutions that despite promotional campaign, sales did not increase. Why? Okay, some the cheaper products in the market, are they cheaper? So in the mobile you saw, or even the history. Have you read a book on history of Kodak? There was a time where Kodak had monopoly in the world market. There was nobody at Kodak, whether you wanted a black and white picture, whether you wanted to make film, or whether you wanted to make a slide project. We used to use make slides or colored roll. It was Kodak which did. How come Kodak got thrown out? The moment digital technology came, Kodak did not change the technology. They were so complacent, they were so sure that nobody can challenge Kodak. And Japan and so many, Korea and all, they were coming up with a digital camera, which was so affordable. And anybody could buy them, no? And you did not need any special role because Kodak was in my times, there was a saying that if you want to ruin somebody, gift them a camera. So that if you gift somebody a camera, their complete pocket money will get over. So it was a luxury. Photography was a luxury. We could just have one iCard photo for our college, no? But the technology which they say, and the whole research R&D of Kodak was completely caught unaware, where world market was captured by Samsung and so many other mobile companies. And currently also we see the challenge which the Apple is facing vis-a-vis so many Asian mobiles produced by Asian countries, no, especially Korea, Japan, even China. this thing. So this thing. Now, the two things you need to understand. One is the ontology. What is the ontology? Which refers to our assumptions about how we see the world. Does the world consist mostly of social order or a constant change? Is your society changing or stagnant? Second aspect is that of epistemology. Epistemology refers to our assumption about the best way to study the world. What kind of tool, what kind of vision, what kind of concepts, what kind of analytical formulations that we use? Should we use an objective or a subjective approach to study social reality? What is the objective approach? Okay, if you are studying, say, major processes, macroeconomic reality, your objective study will be that, okay, I'll provide the analysis of census data or NSS data. And social reality, does NSS and census data explain everything, or you need to far more nuanced understanding about the social reality? For example, declining work participation of women has been a mind-boggling issue of our country from 2013. Sudden decline. From 34% of women who were in the workforce, it becomes 17%. How do you explain that? And that's why the data says that census has shown decline, or NSS has shown decline. NFHS has also shown decline. But to understand why so many women are out of the workforce, when UGC is boasting about thousands of women thronging the university, knocking at the door of the university, and also getting degrees. If you see the UGC data, in so many streams, there are more women than men in the bachelor's level, BA, BCom, if you see. And why these degrees don't translate into employment. Okay, so for that, the studies which were done, they did not use only the statistical analysis, but they also tried to find out, supplement the research with knowing that what are the gender norms, what are the security issue, what are the mobility issue, or what are the other family demands of the care economy, which are preventing women. What are the demographic issue, that how is the pyramid, population pyramid of our country, where 20 states in India have become below stabilization. That means a couple have less than 2 children. Life expectancy has increased. There are families in which 4 generations are alive. You have your children, parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents are also alive. Who are looking after them? It is the women of the house who are looking after. Well, how come 40% of women who have degree, MBA degree, are not joining the work, but they are giving up work after marriage or maternity? And this study, social reality, showed that there are 4 factors. One is the child care. Second one is elderly care. Third one is technology, which is women are not so technologically endowed. They are not given opportunity to keep in touch with the growing technology. So the moment new technology comes, women are replaced by men. And fourth one is security issue. After Nirbhaya tragedy in Delhi, parents and in-laws are worried. They will not allow women members of the family to travel long distance because of the question of mobility, insecurity while traveling to the workplace, and also the Me Too movement and the sexual harassment at workplace, the amount of discussion that are happening, that also make people who can afford, that means middle class, which can manage with one salary, they would dissuade women members of their family not to join the workforce. Now, these are the kind of complexities which are captured by triangulation. What is triangulation? You have a quantitative data and you have qualitative field-based qualitative data. You triangulate them and come up with a comprehensive understanding. Research processes, you have one is the observation phase, second one is rationalization. First you observe what is happening, and then you come up with your rationale that these are the processes which are happening and these are the reasons for that. These are the kind of functional relationship that we are seeing. And then comes the validation phase, and that validation you can do with your hardcore data from this. Now, discipline in the class. There was a study about discipline in the class. Okay, that study says children were very quiet in the class. The researcher writes, but why were children quiet? Were they engrossed in study, or they were busy with their mobile? All the naughty children at the back, they were not even paying attention. Or the teacher was so cruel that out of fear, students became quiet. Now, just observing and writing, there was a discipline in the class is not enough. You have to find out that are students engaged in what is happening in the class. And similarly, like we can also see about the online classes. You may see that the students are participating in online classes, but are they attentive, or they have stopped their video and they are doing whatever they want to do, and they are not even paying attention to what is happening in the classroom. Today's paper shows that attention span of online teaching is around 40% less than when you have a face-to-face teaching. Okay. So how is it based on? There are various ways in which you do the study by, say, oral exam, or by quizzing, or by making them write whatever they have absorbed. So there are various ways in which you can test that. Now, the question, the whole research process, if we see, first you come up with your research question, you do literature review, which is very important, and I think the KES Shroff College's library has taken this initiative, and they are the ones who are most proficient in how the literature review is done, both from the books and journals and also online sources that you have. And you come up with your theory, which theoretical framework you will use for your research. You come up with the operationalization through your research design. You come up with what kind of research methodology you will use, whether you will use quantitative method, qualitative method, within quantitative method, what kind of sampling techniques, whether it will be snowball sample, or stratified sample, or random sample. In qualitative, which kind of, whether it will be phenomenology or grounded theory, or case study, or focus group discussion, key informant interviews you will do. And you also come up with your sampling strategy, that this thing. And then once you are clear about this, you write your research proposal, and you do the pilot testing of your research proposal, you do your data collection, and then the data cleaning, data processing, data entry, data analysis, cross-tabulation, and both in quantitative and qualitative research, you need to give code to you have to do the coding of your data, and you write the research report. So now I come to how do we write the research paper, research proposal. First, research proposal, research paper, and dissertation. First, choose your topic, design study plan and strategy. Collection of your data is important. Analyze this data, interpret this data, and also share your first draft with the peers who will give you constructive comments. So dissemination of your research also you can do with those whom you trust and whom you think that will make very useful suggestions. Now, there are interdisciplinary researches, transdisciplinary researches, and multidisciplinary researches. In interdisciplinary research, you are more than one academic discipline is there in the research project. So you draw on the knowledge theories, principles, concepts, worldviews from the scholastic traditions and multiple disciplines such as ethnography, sociology, political science, anthropology, psychology, economics, legal studies, history, geography, management studies. And the analytical tools which are drawn by this study is they are transcending disciplinary boundaries. So you also go, like if you see gender studies or Dalit studies or tribal studies, or even in the management studies, there are more than one disciplines which are the theoretical foundations, analytical methods of more than one discipline are used. Currently, if you see plethora of literature and the rapid assessment studies which have come up on the COVID-19 pandemic, or even the papers which were presented at the international conference by the KES Shroff School on the gender implications of COVID-19 pandemic, they were done with the, many of the researches were done with the interdisciplinary perspective. Transdisciplinary research is defined as research effort from different disciplines working jointly to create new conceptual, theoretical, methodological, translational innovations that integrate and move beyond discipline-specific approaches to address common problems. For example, if you are doing study on one-stop crisis center, currently Mumbai city has 13 one-stop crisis centers housed in 13 municipal hospitals. Now, in these one-stop crisis centers, when the survivor of violence approach the hospital, there are doctors, okay, there are public health specialists, doctors of various specializations, according to the kind of injury that these survivors have, they intervene and they bring out the medical aspect. You have a psychiatrist, social worker, medical social worker. They also tell about the patient behavior, what kind of trauma that they have had. And you also have a social scientist who see that what kind of rehabilitation program you can have from them. So this multidisciplinary faculties are there. When you are doing study on water distribution, or see currently a lot of work is happening about the water scarcity and water utilization. There you get engineers, whether it's a pipeline engineer, environmental engineer, mechanical engineer, this. You have a social scientist, you have a gender studies people, because women and water, women are the ones who are responsible for collection of water. So what kind of workload do they have? How the children who are involved in collection of water, their education stops because it's such a laborious activity. So all this transdisciplinary team of researchers, they come together. Now, coming to the process of research paper writing, first of all, once you have choose your topic and the conceptual framework, you start scanning background material, contact your librarian, go through the archives, you decide what kind of data and material you want, and you can also do online search. You have to organize your data, you have to write the abstract of your research paper, you have to do the logical expansion of the what you have promised in your abstract. Your abstract are giving the main salient features and highlights and framework, and in the paper you are doing the logical expansion. In every, whether it's a paper or dissertation or report, you have to give the subtitles. They at one glance they tell us that what is in store in the report or a paper. Write and read the first draft, very important. Read it again and again, meticulously edit. Most of the students, including in last 1 week, I received 4 dissertations of MPhil students. All of them had sent unclean copy. They did not send the clean copy. It took me my 5 to 6 hours. And that's why you can see my eyes are so overworked. But because I'm the supervisor. But when you are doing your research paper, others will not do the copy editing, spell check, typo, sentence construction, and logical sequencing of the material. So it is very important that you read and also edit, you explore, you reflect, and after that you finalize it. Write your summary, which encapsulates, or your summary should be logical extension of what all you have discussed in your paper or dissertation, and write your conclusion, your references and citation. You follow one particular pattern, whether it is American Psychological Association or whether it is a Canadian style or Oxford style or Cambridge style, whichever, and so many journals they give you the style sheet. So you have to consistently follow the style sheet given to you for the citation. Every university also has its own style sheet for submission of PhD thesis. When I did my PhD in 1988, at that time we were writing footnote and endnote. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we were giving numbers to the references. Now that is gone. Now you do the integration of there is a cross-referencing that you have to do, where the title of author and the year of publication, and then you have a complete reference at the end of the paper or thesis. A peer review is also very important. Most of the established researchers and think tanks and all, they always get their research peer reviewed. Those who are peers, those who have specialization in your own field of knowledge or on your own discipline, you either organize a workshop, which is called dissemination workshop, or you can just have an informal meeting of 5, 6 people who would give you very good, useful suggestion. You do that. And all the journals, all the established journals, they all write, it is a peer-reviewed journal. So whenever you submit your research paper or article, they send it to the experts, 2 or 3 3-member peer reviewers or 2 members experts. They are going through. They go through to your article, and they decide whether it is acceptable or which requires minor revision, major revision, or complete rejection. Okay. Another very important thing you need to, now it is possible to do the self-check of plagiarism. That means it is called similarity index. So you have a Urkund, you have a Turnitin, in which your page-wise you can do whether there is a similarity index. If there are more than 4 words which are similar from any other previously done research, it would start beeping, okay, and it will highlight those words. So it is very important to do. And now in all universities, you have to submit your plagiarism check report. So the report that is, whether it's your MA dissertation, MPhil dissertation, PhD dissertation, in the dissertation itself, you have to attach the similarity index report. UGC has permitted only 10% similarity, and especially the problems, the legal the students of law find it very difficult, because they have to quote the judgments. They have to quote long, and the judgments have to be into inverted comma, okay? And law students always complain that this 10% of similarity index, it's very, very difficult for them to manage, but still UGC is insistent that only 10% similarity will be allowed. After that, you can ask the student to write the same matter in their own language, so that in the Turnitin or in Urkund or in any other plagiarism check portal, it won't show. Now, some very important understanding, realistic understanding of the investigation of the research question that you need to have. Provide justification of methodological perspective and methods of investigation. Any query that will come about your article or about your research paper, or even at the time of Viva of your MPhil or PhD thesis or postdoctoral work, would be that you need to justify why you chose particular method, and method of methodological perspective, theoretical perspective, and also the investigation style. Provide data which has capacity to answer your research questions. So these are very only because data is like a forest. Okay, data, you can get lost in data. So it's very important. Most of the times, every student would translate each and every question into a table, and they would come with you with 400 or 500 tables. We don't need that. Even in PhD thesis, maximum 40 to 50 tables which are most relevant to your research question. You stick to that. So this, you should adequately consider the relevant ethical issues, that you haven't done any harm. It's very important. Ethical standards, where anonymity of the respondent is important, informed consent is important. You can't cheat a person. You have to tell the intention of your research, how the findings of the research will be used, whether your research is going to be in a public domain, and is it going to do any direct or indirect harm to the respondent. It's very important. So the objectives of your research should be smart. They should be relevant. They should be very, very scholastically this thing, they should be manageable, they should be accurate, they should be relevant, they should be timely. It should contribute to human knowledge. Your unique selling point is innovativeness. In any research, you have to prove, and in fact, in every university, there is a guideline given that what is unique in this particular research, you have to prove that. Clear thinking is very important. High level of motivation. Research is such an endeavor. Journalistic writing, writing a diary, writing an essay, you can blurt out whatever comes in your mind. But in research, writing a research article where you have to provide evidence, you have to give references, you have to do painstakingly hard work both in the field and on the research table. It's you need a very high level of motivation, and it is a long-term process. Focusing on one topic for a long period, you need a very high level of motivation. Substantiate the goals with solid evidences. Whichever are the research objectives you have asked, you have defined. How are you going to get the solid objective evidences? Proper referencing, consistent referencing. Whichever reference style you use, stick to that till and we set the time scale. It's very important for a researcher to come up with the timeline. How much time you will take in writing your concept note, in writing your proposal. Then literature review. Along with the literature review, can you start writing your introduction and research methodology? In the field, how much time will go? How much time will take in data cleaning, data processing? What are the data which you are going to read out? What data processing, data analysis, cross-tabulation. Among the tables also, which are the ones which can be, say, whether it's multivariate or single frequency table that you are going to take, all that you have to decide. And the time you have to allocate. If it is a sponsored research, if you need research costs to be covered either by a college or by UGC or by any research institution or any foundation, you need to come up with a realistic budget. So many times you under budget your proposal and then you end up paying from your own pocket, and so many times you are inflating your budget. So at first go only, your proposal will be thrown out that this is a very inflated budget. Abstracts of the proposal at the end. So many people write abstract at the end so that those who are evaluating, especially when you have a bidder, because now most of the researches you have people bidding from all over India, like National New Education Policy. It talks about the research foundation, which will give the research grant. Now there will be proposals from all parts of India. And there'll be hundreds and hundreds of proposals. Whenever I am doing the screening of a project, whether it's interdisciplinary research or multidisciplinary research or transdisciplinary research, as an expert, one gets so many research proposals. So many times you get inundated. So it's very important to also write abstract at this thing. So after reading, they also know what are the highlights and what are the most attractive aspect of your research endeavor. Now, the whole process of research, one is it starts with ontology, what is out there to know. Then you go to epistemology, that means what and how can I know about it? What are the methodology? How can we go about acquiring knowledge? What method I will use, whether I'll be in the library or whether I'll be in the field, whether I'll go through the data sets already given by the this thing. Wherever there are data gaps, I may supplement it with the focus group discussion or qualitative study or case study. Methods are the techniques, that which precise procedure am I going to use? Am I going to use the sampling technique? Am I going to use computer aided this thing? Which package of computer aided data analysis I'll use, SPSS or STATA or whatever? And what are the sources of data collection? So from ontology to epistemology to methodology to methods and sources, at all stage you have to be very alert. Now, methods are the techniques and procedures used to collect and analyze data. Methodology refers to more than method, because it is discussion of how research is done. That means what ideological framework, what analytical vision that you are going to use, and how it should be done. The critical analysis of methods of research and also ideological underpinning. What is, whether it's your theories of psychology or theories of economics, neoclassical theory, or structural functional analysis in sociology, or feminist ideology, feminist psychology. So which are the theories which are going to inform your research? What is my research? What theories, concepts, models inform my research? What kind of data will I need to answer the questions? How will I collect this data? What ethical issues are relevant to my research? What are the strengths and limitations of my research? How much can I reasonably achieve with my research? And how will my work be judged by others, different stake groups, the funders, by university, by policy makers? As you in my introduction, it was told that I prepared the base paper on gender for Mumbai Municipal Corporation in 2009, MMRDA in 2012, and Maharashtra Human Development Report for 2012, and 2013 Minority Commission of Maharashtra. Now, what is the importance of this background paper? We were told, we were given data, block-wise data of Maharashtra for 375 blocks. And quantitative data was given. What we had to do was to what kind of targeted intervention the government of Maharashtra can make in terms of improving human development indicators of certain wards in Mumbai. When it came to BMC, YM ward has a very high maternal mortality, though there is a Shatabdi hospital. Why you have such a low literacy? Why child marriages are still happening in Bombay's bastis? Nearly 22% households in Mumbai's bastis, you had child marriages. The girls are married off before 18. Why in certain areas, certain wards, now also there is a practice of home births, though you have maternity hospitals close by, and why you have such a high maternal mortality rate? Now, with this kind of a mandate you have, then you have to focus your research in that particular particular aspect and show the way in which things can be changed or improved. The question well asked is question well answered. So that means the way you ask your question will determine what kind of data, whether your data will be weak or your data will be robust. That's very important. It also probably suggests how and from where and from whom the data will be obtained. Sharp, pointed, straight questions to be asked. What are the data sources for you? Whether they are numbers, whether they are percentages, whether they are profile of individuals or institutions, case studies, focus group discussions. For Minority Commission, we did not have time. We were given only 6 months to come up. Only 5 experts were hired asked by the government of Maharashtra to come up with socio-economic status of Muslims in Maharashtra. What happened after Sachar committee, which gave its report in 2006, and in 2013 when we were asked to submit the report, in 6 months time we were asked to use our domain knowledge of being in Maharashtra for 30 years as academicians and researchers, and data, quantitative data was provided by the government. What we had to do, series of focus group discussions with key informants in various parts of Maharashtra. Focus group discussion with the youth, with the social workers, with the religious leaders, with the housewives, with the working women, with the women who were young mothers, elderly women, men who were into various types of artisan work, educated men and women. So series of focus group discussions we did and supplemented the data, macro state level data, which was given to us by the government, and came up with the 13 chapters. So that is very important. Group discussions, pictures, newspaper articles, books, reports, archives, diaries, and observations of the key informants become very important, and your observation as a researcher becomes very important. So when we do the research work, we are completely focused on our object. The way Arjun was seeing only the left eye of a bird when he was learning his skill as a sharpshooter, no? The same way, when you are doing your research, you have to be totally engrossed in it, and your personal observation you need to note down in your field diary. Now you carry laptop. In our times, we used to have a field diary. So that gives you qualitative information about it. And then your schedule, interview schedule, gives the quantitative information. So the library research, where the books or published articles, journals, visuals, photographic evidences, video clippings, audio records, they are important. Classify your material thematically. When work is in progress, in our times we used to make cards. We used to write all these things in cards and give the title to the card, so that when you write the chapters, when you write the sections, then it becomes easier for you to organize your thoughts and organize your material. Use notebooks or index cards to track information as you uncover it in your research. Now you can do the similarly. You can now create different files for different sections on computer. Try asking the librarians for help. It's very, very important to regularly keep in touch with the librarian. Write complete references with annotation. Don't leave it to the end. Whenever you come across any useful data, useful information, useful quotation, useful article, immediately write complete reference, author, title, year of publication, place of publication, number of pages, which if it's an edited book, you have to write page from where the chapter starts till it ends. It's a journal article, you have to write the volume, you have to write the number, you have to write the pages. If it is one page, you write P, and if the more than one pages, you write PP. So the complete references you do, otherwise you will end up wasting a lot of time later on when you start writing. Now, recently, in the last 15 months, we have seen that most of the researches have been done online, okay, because of the demand of social distancing. So you have so many powerful research tools out there. You have a blogger, you have LiveJournal, TypePad, WordPress, microblogging sites are there like Twitter, Yammer, Google Buzz. You have a location-specific social media sites are there. Social networking like Facebook, LinkedIn, MySpace is there, aggregators are there, conferencing techniques are there. So many multi-centric researches where people across 10, 15 countries, they are doing multi-centric research about impact of COVID on school education, impact of globalization on migratory pattern, okay, cross-country migration, rural urban migration, inter-district and inter-state migration. Okay, so these are multi-centric researches. All the researchers, they share their knowledge, their data in a Dropbox. So so every member of the team is at one page. You have wikis, you have social bookmarking, you have social bibliography, social news, social documents, project management portals are there, photographs, videos, live streaming, presentation sharing, virtual worlds. Now, all these social media and online platform, online sources are also equally important for research. You have also, like you can also use Google Drive document, Google Reader, Google Scholar, Facebook, Twitter, P2P, Pinterest, Delicious. In fact, so many questionnaires recently we have been receiving either on WhatsApp or by email are used on Google Drive. Now, once you choose your topic, if it doesn't interest you much, it will not motivate you. So be very, very selective about what topic you are going to work on. And choosing a subject that is too general is not going to take you anywhere, because there already a lot of material is there. So try to bring in some new dimension or a unique dimension in your research. So developing the research proposal, it's very important that you, first of all, you come up with your research questions, examine the scope of your question, separate major and subsidiary question, and which are the questions which are not necessary, which are irrelevant, and also refine the wording of your question. So whatever question you prepare, you see to it that what kind of wording, the way, the tone in your question gets you most appropriate answers. So your consideration in your research paper writing or research dissertation writing is first that whether it is an exploratory research or a descriptive research or explanatory research, you need to, first of all, in your initial description, you have to describe, explore that, then you go into detailed account, that means you describe, then you explain the factors which are responsible, understand and establish your reasoning, predict what kind of postulates you are making, what are the recommendations that you come up with, and whether what kind of change that one is expecting, and you evaluate whether the desired outcome are achieved or not in your research endeavor. What are your research strategies? Where will the data come from? Official documents, archives, or social media? Your review of literature, whether you have included the latest works in your review, all major publications, all major researches, have they been critically examined by you? Whether you need some translations, if your responses are in regional languages, then you may need to, or the language in which you are doing research is different from what the data that you got. So that is also required. Your field survey, investigation, interviews, they all need to be systematically organized. And your focus group discussions, you need to provide the very logical description of that. So with the induction and deduction, as I said, that you in the induction, first you observe, then you identify the pattern, then you come up with the tentative hypothesis, and you do the theory building. In the deductive logic, first you have a theory, then you come up with the hypothesis to test, then you have observations to address the hypothesis, test your hypothesis, and confirm or disconfirm the original hypothesis. The strategies of answering your question, you always continuously ask yourself what I want to study, what will be, I want to study this, and how will I study the program. Two extremes in the research endeavor. One is unstructured interviews, where you have a free-flowing narrative, which is done in phenomenology or in qualitative research, or in a quantitative research, you have an interview schedule, closed interview schedule with the structured questions. Then, so both of them have their own value in your field research, and you also depend on the literature and the archive, whether to corroborate or to expand the existing knowledge. In the quantitative researches, you have numbers and percentages are important. In the qualitative research, you have words are very important, feelings, your observations become very important. So variety of methods that you have at your disposal, whether it's a survey, in that, whether it's a random, purposive, stratified snowball survey, you have a univariate analysis, multivariate analysis, frequency distribution, central tendency or center of distribution of values, dispersion, bivariate correlation, regression, about which I think Professor Athman Shah will be telling you more, because he's going to speak on quantitative research. And in the qualitative research, you are you're entirely dependent on the feelings, impressions, and judgments in your data collection. Researcher is personally very much involved in the qualitative research because it involves words. Usually smaller volume of participants, they are there, and your records are, you have to make a very meticulous record of all the ethnographic research, life history interviews, discourse analysis. And the strength of qualitative research is the depth of understanding, reaching out where other methods can't reach to give meaning to numbers, but its limitations are in terms of representativity, because the sample is very small in qualitative research. So the approaches in qualitative research, as I told you earlier also, whether it's ethnography, study of the human beings, phenomenology, grounded research, case studies, each approach in qualitative research is not mutually exclusive. You can use more than one methodology in your, so it's a heterodox views of that change existing power structures. For example, if you see the research is done by the Dalit studies, Black feminist research, post-colonial feminist research, where you see the recognizing the respondents' own knowledge. How do we see the knowledge? How do we see the reality from the post-colonial perspective, not what the white man had given us? More humane, interactive, dialogical, minimizing disempowerment of the respondent. So participatory human processes that result in more complete knowledge. So that is very important in the qualitative research. In the narrative research also, what we see is that first you identify a problem and phenomena to explore, then select one or more participants to study, then you come up to collect the story from the participant and retell the story from the perspective of your research, the theory that you are doing it. As I told you, that the way victim would speak, there would be a lot of blame game that they would be doing. But you as a researcher would be talking about their agency. Okay, you will not talk about the victimhood, because victims also have their own, they do the self-play. And you know that it's a situation which is responsible. You won't call when you are interviewing a person who is in jail, in the prison study. Okay, prison would they say, "Haan, maine guna kiya, I committed crime. That's why I'm in jail." But you as a social scientist would focus on the circumstances in which the crime took place. Okay, and that's why we also don't call them criminal. We call them person in conflict with law. Okay, it is the circumstances which created the crime. Okay, so narrative analysis in research involves collecting description of events, usually through observations and interviews, restoring the same story you tell from your perspective, collecting background narratives through essays if they have written. Because in Maharashtra, there was a very massive study was done in the 80s, where they were asked, all women, all panchayats were sent circular by Indian Institute of Political Economy in Pune, that they wanted essays from women on me by Ahe Manu, because I am a woman. They received thousands of essays from all parts of the state in Marathi, and which brought out tremendous variety of life worlds of women in Maharashtra of different age group. There were young women who had written, there were workers who had written, there were Devdasis and Adivasis who have written, and all of that helped in, and it was compiled in a research project in a big volume called Me by Ahe Manu. And this volume was so helpful in coming up with the state policy on women. Maharashtra state policy. Maharashtra was the first state in our country to come up with a women's policy way back in 1994. So this research had played a very important role. Essays written by women about their life world became the data. Okay, so diaries become data. Sharmila Rege studied diaries of 37 Dalit women who took part in Mahad Satyagraha under leadership of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and how their life had changed after Mahad Satyagraha. Now, these diaries analysis shows the new consciousness among Dalit women because of the Baba Saheb slogan of organize, agitate, and struggle. The letters, there are so many researchers who have done the studies of the letters, correspondence between Gandhiji and Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. Such an important lesson, because the Gandhiji had a regular correspondence with this prince, this Rajkumari, who became a freedom fighter on wide range of issues of our country. Whether it was a colonialism, whether it was a freedom struggle, whether it was the role of satyagrahis, whether it was the role of education of women, whether it was a role of dowry system, children, the treating of boy and girl unequally, female infanticide, you name an issue and it is there. And there are so many researchers who have studied these letters, correspondence between Gandhiji and Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, to construct the history and the kind of discourses which were going on during the freedom movement. The life experiences, currently 15 women who played a very important role in Constitution of India, along with Baba Sahib Ambedkar, especially the first section of fundamental rights and directive principles of the Constitution of India. Many researchers are currently, historians are doing research on the life experiences of what was the triggering point. How did these women who were facing tremendous discrimination in personal life, how they got activated in the freedom movement? What was the factor which made them become so brave to join the freedom movement? They went to the jail. They did so many heroic activities. Many of them were young child widows who were rejected, who were facing social discrimination, and how they joined and contributed greatly to the freedom movement. There were women who were victim, a person like Ratmabai Save, who was victim of a child marriage. She defied that, and she became a legendary figure who came up with, who dedicated her life to the nation building, died at the age of 94 in the 70s. So even after the independence, she went out of work. So it's not going here. So the phenomenology is another very important method where there are descriptive phenomenology is focused on subjective experiences of individuals and group, while the hermeneutic phenomenology talks about the interpretation of the meaning in relation to the phenomena. So both of them, like if you see, there is a teachers from and students from English department would be knowing that this book, Writings, Caste, Writing, Gender, Narratives of Dalit Women's Testimonies by Sharmila Rege, which is now part of a syllabus in very many universities, or the women's writings in India from 600 BC to the present, they had used this methodology, qualitative methodology of content analysis, and going through the narratives written by women right from 600 BC, Terigathas by the Buddhist Bhikkhuni, or 12th century saint poetesses, or Lal Dev from Kashmir, or Mahadevi Akka from Karnataka, or Behna Bai from Maharashtra in the 15th century. So how they constructed the whole literary tradition, creative tradition among women by going through their creativity and by going through the lyrics and whatever the legends they have about these women. The grounded theory, as I told you, that it is based on the ground reality, and currently a lot of studies are happening with the perspective of grounded theory. So first you do the data collection, then you do the coding of your data, then you come up with the theoretical sampling, and you build the theory. So the theory of social exclusion, theory about economic hardship, theory about reduced opportunities and the restricted access, which have come up in the context of pandemic, and how the intersectional marginalities are operating, which is based on where a lot of studies have come up with the grounded theory. Even the migration studies have. Ethnography, as a lot of work is done with ethnography. Even the economist like Esther Bosram, who wrote a book, Women's Role in Economic Development, also used ethnography, which is very important way of studying the human behavior, the organization of the communities, not from the distance, but by being with the community using dialogical perspective. And that's how the qualitative research, if you see some of the classic examples in qualitative research, they are with the Space of Her Own, that was written by Leela Gulati's work, which is in the absence of their man. She studied women in Kerala, how were they coping up when the man of the household had migrated to the Gulf country, or the other side of silence done by Urvashi Putalia, the whole testimonies of partition, how women who faced atrocities at the time of participation, how are they coping up? They interviewed women who are in their 80s. In 1947, they were young women. So these kind of narratives are very important. And qualitative method and analysis has been used by social sciences in a big way. And it is as against the top-down approach, which positivism talks about. This is a bottom-up approach. You establish rapport with the people. And currently, the most fashionable thing is both positivism, because you need number, you need representativity, and you also need nuanced understanding, which comes from qualitative research. So the mixed method researches are very, very popular, both for theoretical and the praxis issues, and it is called triangulation. So quantitative and qualitative methods is a part of multi-strategy design, that is a triangulation. And taking down the proper notes is very, very important in anything that you do, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. Write an outline with title and subtitle and structure your article or dissertation. Write with authority. Anytime you do research writing, you can't say, I feel, I think, I maybe, no. You have to write whatever you are writing, you have to substantiate it. You are not writing for impressiveness, so no pompousness is required. Show your planning, your research carefully. Think about pragmatic issues, and you are the expert of your own topic. Help the reader to grasp your ideas. Edit for clarity, not for proofreading. It's not only proofreading, but content reading is also very important. References are also about which you have to be. I think there is going to be a special session, and your librarians are very, very competent. The most important issue is that of a research ethics. Each and every university has its own ethical guideline and standard operative procedure, SOP, for research. So your research, whether you are competent to do research. You may do research on diabetes, but your degree is in MA sociology. Can you do that? You need to have in your research team to one who has a knowledge in medicine or nursing. Okay, so competency is also very important. Consent, whether you have taken consent of the people who are part of the research, who are participating in your research, are they free, or you have threatened them that you have to be, you have asked the local leader that chalo line mein khade reh jao, and they have to answer your question. What are the benefits and risks of the analysis of the research? There are certain sensitive topics. If you are doing research on income, the people would like to know whether you are going to give this information to the income tax, or if you are doing research on health insurance and you are asking their problem of health, whether it's a diabetes or an arthritis or this, will you share this information with the insurance company? So they would like to know. And there have been, this has happened, okay? It has happened in Latin America. Privacy preservation, when you're talking of domestic violence, sexual abuse, many other sensitive issues of partnership, cheating in partnership, fraud, privacy preservation, confidentiality, anonymity, ownership of data. Who owns the data? Whether your funder owns the data or you owns the data. Who has the copyright? Feedback to the participants and use and misuse of the result, about which you need to be very, very careful and sensitive. So voluntary participation, anonymity and confidentiality, disclosure, whatever you have researched, you communicate it back. So many researchers, they publish summary of the research or organize a meeting after the research is over, or the publication in the regional language to which is communicated to those who have taken part in it. Your code of conduct, how you behave as a researcher. Is it insulting or it is hurting the feeling of the people? While currently massive multi-centric research is happening on violence against women under pandemic, okay? 4 organizations are doing it nationwide study. They have to be careful. While talking about violence, the woman may become hysterical. She may start crying. She may develop physical or mental discomfort. Do you have any safeguard for that? Have you kept a counselor? Are you going to provide any medical aid? So that is very important. Who will have a copyright over your writing once the report is ready? Will the author have copyright? Whether the publisher will have copyright? Most currently we know in the world only 5 major publishing houses are controlling the knowledge. Your own article, when I want my own article which I had written in 30 years back, they are asking for 80 euros. They are asking for $130. So those questions have also now emerged. And a lot of debate is happening, inconclusive, but debate is happening, that who controls the knowledge and why there is so much of a centralization of our knowledge. Work on your first draft very, very systematically. Then once your draft is ready, do the copy editing, do the final adjustment and read over, get it peer reviewed, discuss with your colleagues, and then be careful that remember that your article, your thesis, your dissertation, your research report, what the evaluators, what the readers you will focus on is your perspective, your objectives, your literature survey, your design, tools, plan of analysis, research question, ethical issues, timeline, references, and executive summary and synopsis. So these are some of the important books. Many of them are available in a online also PDF. Some of them are also available free of charge. They are not charging, but these are for the Indian researchers. They are very, very useful for research methodology, and their step-by-step analysis of research methodology is given by them. I have specially quoted the fifth reference, Walking with the Migrant, which was done with the participatory action research. The researchers were walking with, when the migrants were going back, they were walking with them and beyond COVID-19 pandemic, and that helped in giving insight into the problem of interstate migration, rural urban migration, and cross-country migration, and what kind of new laws, new support system that our housing, especially the question of a housing, state has to play the role in terms of providing social security and social protection to the migrant workers that came. They have used both largely qualitative method and descriptive narrative analysis. Thank you. So this is the research process.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an engaging session, and it was full of details. Even the references were very updated from 2018 till 2021. So we thank you for such an engaging session. Now I would like to call Ganga ma'am to take up the questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. The session was really very wonderful. Ma'am, one question from my side.
Yeah.
Ma'am, is it necessary that the constructs or variables we need to design from other theories?
What?
Do we need to design or take variables or constructs from other theories? I mean, we will have to keep a base of other theories when we go for dissertation or thesis. Is that necessary?
I haven't understood your question. Yeah.
My question is not audible. My mic is not clear.
She is talking about deductive process. Deductive. Base has to be taken as a theory. Means from a theory to generalization we should go. That's what
is necessary, ma'am.
Both are. It all depends on the research question and the way you want to probe your research. No, so there have been deductive theories. For example, those who have done research with, say, feminist theory or Marxist theory or a perspective. Okay, so theories, no, that you know you're going to use discourse analysis. You know that you are going to use positivism. So they are deductive. You have come up with your deductive logic that you are going to, and you have to rationale for why you are using this deductive method, okay? And you are doing the hypothesis test. While the inductive theory, you theorize after from the data analysis. That what your data you come up with the induction. You any it is not one is superior than the other. It all depends on you as a researcher, what you find most convenient.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there is one more question from Nirja. Ma'am, where can we write the objectives in PhD thesis, either in introduction or methodology? Where can we write the objective in PhD thesis?
First, to do the scan and do the gap analysis. That what are the gaps in the existing research, so that you know that what new you are going to give. Because repeat that, no. So begin with your literature. I tell all my scholars and this thing to first of all, you decide your topic. What is the topic? What is the issue that interests you the most? Because then only you can engage. Otherwise, you'll get bored after some time. So once you decide the topic, start doing the related work, what we know you have already done. And then you do the gap analysis. What are the gaps I find that other researchers are not doing, which I'm going to focus on. And then come up with your concept, and then based on your concept, you come up with your such question and methodology you will use for the further process.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Begin review of literature.
Ma'am, yeah.
Ritika, ma'am, please continue.
Ma'am, I have one question. How do we select the analysis? For example, we are doing an ethnographic work. Let's take an example of gendered violence. How do we pick up the analysis part, like which we have to go for thematic analysis or any other type? So how do we pick that, ma'am?
The kind of, it all depends which dimension you are focusing on. The medical, those who are doing the medical legal work, they will focus on the criminal justice system. They will focus on the type of injury, whether it is a bone was broken or sexual violence took place. What are the prima facie evidences? What are the pattern in which the violence is happening? What are the psychological damage it does? Sociological aspect would be from which socio-economic background they come. What are the educational level? Whether the woman was economically independent or not. What kind does she have if it's thrown out or if she has to build her life? Okay, so that that would be other perspective. That women survivor of violence, that I'm not going to tolerate this. Mother's generation did, grandmother's generation did. And how do I see my life? In fact, there is a very good study you can read. A sociologist in Delhi University, 9 women used sex selective abortion. In spite of tremendous pressure from husband, from in-laws, in some cases even parents didn't say ek bachcha ladka chahiye chahiye. What price they had to pay for not doing sex selective abortion of children. Beautiful study. Each case study makes one chapter. So there are 9 chapters. One woman is an entrepreneur. She is a small entrepreneur, and how after her husband divorced her, this remarried now, and how she built her life. Other person that she negotiated, she convinced her mother that Mary beti beta. Okay, I don't think that only son is a budape ka naam. My daughter can also be this. She in course of time, they all were angry. They were discriminating against her. Time when the daughter was born, and they changed. Instigating, insisting that her daughter should have at least ghar chahiye the mother, and then she did. She started staying independently. The friends helped. Now, studies Indian culture, our history, our legacy, and telling that हमारे शास्त्रों में भी तो देखो, look at our Ramayana and Mahabharata. Did any do for daughter? The Draupadi was Sita Mata was honored from. She was a thrown out baby who Raja Janak raised. For a Draupadi, she was flown in the river. That is again she was an abandoned baby. Sita was an abandoned baby. Was born. All 9 sisters of Lord Krishna, they were killed by their own maternal uncle. That is Indian culture. Killing of.
Yeah, right.
Convince these women why there is no guilt in doing selective abortion. Material culture, tradition. हमारे वहाँ तो in our family, in our region, that is on. Nobody lights the lamp. घर में दिया तक नहीं जलाते. So you understand, if there is no light in the house, you understand daughter is born. In Haryana, that one woman is from Haryana, she said that Suryasta ho gaya. Means daughter is just born, that means Suryasta. Son is born, we call it sunrise. And historical evidence. In this 9 case study, what an insightful book that she has come.
Thank you, ma'am.
Disciplinary insights, disciplinary theory, disciplinary tools we can use.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to now call Urmila ma'am to give vote of thanks.
Good evening to everyone. On behalf of the organizing committee of 𝐾ES Shroff College, I feel immense pleasure to take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to today's eminent speaker, Dr. Vibhuti Patel, who spared the time from her busy schedule to grace this webinar. It is an extremely relevant address on research in social sciences. Thank you so much, madam. My sincere gratitude also goes to the organizing committee for taking such topics that really matter to those who are interested in doing research in the field of social science. Social science is not like pure science like physics, chemistry, and biology. Social sciences include various disciplines dealing with human life, human behavior, social groups, and social institutions. Once again, I thank you all for being with us this evening. Thank you so much. We will meet tomorrow at 3:30. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Shall we end?
Yeah, we can.
The feedback form will remain in the Telegram group also. You all can feed it up till 8 p.m. Thank
Vibhuti
you.
ma'am, will you be sharing your PPT?
Yeah, should I send it right away?
Yeah, you can send me on my mail ID. On my mail.
Have you sent?
Yeah.
The covered one. Yeah, I have your email. I will send it right away.
Okay. Nandini, we will end the meeting. Nandini.
Okay. I'll end the meeting. Thank
Bye.
you. Good day.
Thank you, everyone. Good day.
Yeah, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Vibhuti ma'am.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am. Bye.